Good morning. Well, today is Saturday, September 1st, 2018. And it looks like it's going to be a really nice day today. Cleo, you coming with? Okay. So far, I haven't posted anything because I thought it would be smart to flip my phone vertically. And I haven't figured out how to flip the record horizontally. So, unless you want to see my first view with your head tilted, I'm just going to have to wait. Anyway, this is the other part of the road. This is the part I don't come down. Rarely do I come down. Leo does. Oh, yeah. So what's happening today? Well, the walls are closing in on our illustrious orange pretender. Let me see. How's that? The spider web's out here. You know, I don't have a fire under my ass this morning. I need some inspiration. I don't want this to be just about me, but this is about me. So what about me? Okay. I was born into the military. My father was career Air Force, 30 years and 30 days. He saw 3 wars: World War II, Korea, and Nam. In World War II, he met my mother. She was Belgian. So yeah, she was a war bride. I swear, Cleo, your marking, your idea of marking is not the way marking usually goes. I guess it's making a more solid statement. Anyway, so yeah. Yeah, grew up in the military, saw a lot of shit, learned a lot of shit. It's a whole different kind of life, you know? We were stationed at SAC bases, at Strategic Air Command. So, I guess I'd be like first response type things, military-wise. My father was in vehicle maintenance, so he had a lot of responsibilities, had a lot of knowledge too. When he was when he first started, I guess you could say, it was the Army Air Corps. And after the war, it became the Air Force. And, well, my father was one of the founding members of the Air Force. Because of his experience and his knowledge, he was offered an officer's commission. He turned it down. I have my theories on that. Doesn't make him less of a man. It just is, you know? Anyway, regardless, it wasn't unusual to have officers come over and visit and talk. Seeking perspectives. And it couldn't have been easy for him because he got as high up in rank as he possibly could as an NCO. He was froze as a master sergeant for over 20 years. If I'm recalling correctly, I think it was like 23 years, because they just didn't have any more rank to give him. And I remember when he made senior master sergeant. My mother had just finished getting all of his uniforms switched over with the new stripes. And a couple of weeks later, my father came home with the news that he had been promoted to Chief Master Sergeant. Yeah, you can imagine my mother's reaction to that one. She had to start all over again. Ah, shit, that was good. That really was. Yeah. We were stationed in Tripoli, Libya for a couple years. That was an interesting experience. When we lived off base it was downright scary because I had to stand out on the road waiting for the school bus every morning. And I was the only one on that stop. And I'll be honest, now that I can look back at it all, it scared me. It really did. There was a lot of political unrest. Okay, we're here at the end of the dead-end road. Come on, Cleo. That's a good girl. Yeah, let's go. So, because of political unrest, my mother took me to Switzerland to live with my aunt and uncle. I can't exactly chronologically date when it happened, but I was there. I don't know whether I was on base or off base at that point in time, but we were there for the nationalization of the Shell oil fields in Libya, and we were on high alert. That was scary. Then when I was in Switzerland, I was there during the Bay of Pigs. And European news media, whatever, they're a lot more objective about things. Things are different. But I will say, I can't really comment on all of that because, you know, I was only 13 and I had my head in my own places. Mainly one of them being that I didn't want to be in Switzerland. I wanted to be with my parents. But, you know, given the circumstances, you had to be where you had to be. So, yeah, Bay of Pigs. And believe me, for months, during and after that incident, you could not buy sugar, you could not buy flour, or you could buy it, but it wasn't on the shelf very long, you know, because back then, people still remembered World War II. A lot of the survivors of that war were still around, and they remembered what it was like to be without sugar, flour, and coffee, condensed milk. Yeah. I mean, people laugh, but, you know, toilet paper? It was an awakening for me. I started paying closer attention. And I think that was a turning point for me. And, eventually, 2 years down the line, I came home, went back to Wheelus Air Force Base, and the situation there had, I guess you could say it had gotten worse. It certainly hadn't gotten more comfortable because our government was going through the motions of turning over Wheelus to the Libyan government. And they were slowly evacuating. So you can imagine how stressed the situation was and how busy my father was, because part of his job was to see about vehicular removal. From there, we went to Châteauroux, France. Now, Châteauroux is like 25 miles southeast of Orleans. And we were there for 2.5 years, I think. That was like a stable period in my life. Living at home with my parents in a reasonably calm country. And then we were stationed in further north in France, in Chaumont. Now, Chaumont was more of an installation than a base. And they didn't have a high school. I think they went as high up as 8th grade. So I had to ride the bus every Friday afternoon up to Verdun, where they had what was equivalent to a boarding school. It used to be a military hospital facility, 2 huge dormitory type buildings that intersected onto another big administration building type situation. And so they had the boys in one dormitory and the girls in the other, and the center part that was our school. Had mess hall facilities, or I should say our own mess hall facilities, because it was only students and teachers, faculty. Uh, it was interesting. And on Friday, as soon as class got out, we climbed up on the buses and headed back home. So for a day and a half, we were at home with our friends and family. And then on Sunday afternoon, climbed back up on the bus again and headed back to Verdun. Did that for 2 years. And the political scene there in France was that the American military would get out of the country. So packed up and came back stateside. Ended up in Satellite Beach, Florida. And was there for a number of years. Graduated from Satellite High School 50 years ago. In fact, they just had their 50th reunion. And I didn't go. I didn't go for reasons of my own. Being that, well, you know, I had no friends there in high school back then, so why bother? You know, I'm not going to play a game, smile in everybody's face and say, oh yeah, remember when? No, because I wasn't there. I didn't have friends. I wasn't part of a clique. I was so disgusted with the school system because I had, you know, moving around a lot. You can lose a year of school, and I had. So while I was in Verdun, I was taking junior and sophomore and junior year courses because I wanted to make up for lost time. And I, you know, didn't have anything better to do with myself. After all, I was living in a dormitory room. And come stateside, things are different. Things are a lot different. So here I am with half a day of school of required courses. What are they going to do with me? What am I going to do with them? Because I had to be in school. So I started seeking school outside of school. And you got to remember, back in the late 60s, there wasn't a whole hell of a lot offered. I need to back up because I forgot something. When we came back stateside, my father was stationed at Homestead, another SAC base. And yeah. I was like going into my junior year, and I seriously talked to my father about joining up. And he was all for it. He really was. He was telling me the Navy was opening up for women, and that could be a good place for me. And then there was my mother. She pitched such a bitch that my father backed down, and me being the dutiful daughter that I was, I backed down. And like I said, Nam was cranking up. My father was in the military, and they wanted him in Orlando. And that's how I ended up in Satellite Beach. Because my father would work all week and come home, be with us for about a day and a half, and head back again. Sounds familiar, don't it? That was, there were several things that went on during that time. One, like I said, school. What was I going to do about school? So they had a new program come out. It was like a jobs program. You go to school half a day, and then you go to work for half a day. Okay. Well, let's face it, there's very little to offer around a high school when you're living in a situation, a suburb area, where you don't have a whole lot of businesses to hire you. And having a car was a big deal back then. So I decided to go to school. And again, because of the times, there was little to offer. And especially in the FUBAR that I found my life, because I was too young for college, and I really didn't have the grades for it. My father wanted me to become an engineer, a mechanical engineer, because I am that astute, or at least I was. Things have changed, you know. Now it's all computers. So anyway, I decided I'm going to go to beauty school. And I did. I had a bunch of savings bonds. And I cashed them all in with the help of my mother, of course. And I paid for my tuition. So 5 days a week, I would go to school till noon, come home, change, and catch a ride to beauty school for a few hours. And then on Saturday, when everybody else was goofing off and partying and whatever, I was in beauty school for 12 hours a day. I did this for a year and a half. So over Christmas vacation, I went to Winter Haven, took my state board, and in 1968, like January 5th or 7th, something like that, I was a licensed hairdresser in high school. And then the real work began, because trying to find a job. I managed it. It wasn't easy because everybody wanted somebody with experience. And how the hell do you get experience when you're fresh out of school? You know, they didn't have any kind of apprentice programs or anything like that. They just had what they had, and you had to make the best of it, which wasn't easy. So I made a place for myself. I became a troubleshooter. Salons, you know, they needed somebody extra over the holiday seasons. I was there. They had somebody who had to go in for surgery or had a baby, whatever. I was there. And I did that for some years. And I learned. I learned a lot. Oh, geez, Cleo. We got to turn around, honey. Come on. Oh, you're going to keep going? Come on. Let's go. So, yeah. Anyway. During that time, I had gotten married, had a baby, and got divorced. It was an ugly divorce, but I was free again. And I ended up being a manager for a little salon in Indialantic. And it was up for sale. My mother and I talked. My parents and I talked, I should say. And it was discussed about buying a shop. And I seriously entertained it. But my ex caught wind of it. And I don't know what the fuck was wrong with him. He just, you know, he didn't want me, but he wasn't going to let me have it go on with my life. So he said, "You get that salon, and I'll sue you for alimony." I said, "Please, you don't even pay me child support." Yeah, that's how it was back then. He signed all visitation rights off, so he didn't have to pay child support. And the court let him. Then you wonder where and how and why we feminists are the way we are at times, because we were there on the battle lines. So anyway, I turned it down. But I worked my ass off there. And when I left to move to Orlando, it was, I wouldn't say it was thriving, but it was a busy salon with 2 people, because it was that small. So, okay, fine. And there is that. And for my father, we'll back up to the late 60s again. He was stationed in Orlando. Back then it was a naval station. And it was his job to train the new recruits in vehicle maintenance. That was hard enough for him. But then the pressure started coming on. He was coming up on retirement, and Vietnam was escalating. And my father internalized all this bullshit. So yeah, the stress weighed heavy on him. Damn, it's getting warm. So yeah, he finally retired. And it wasn't like within 3 to 6 months after retirement, he became ill. I don't know if you've ever heard of scleroderma. It's the calcification of the soft body tissue. You know, aside from your skin and so forth, your muscles, it's also your organs. And back then, they had exactly 3 documented cases in the United States. So nobody knew dick squat about anything. Yeah. It was a slow and steady decline. And as the end came closer, my father became more desperate because he was afraid to die. And you know, I can't say as I blame him because he was like 53. So anyway, he died. And the day of his funeral, we took him up to Monterey, Tennessee to be buried in the family plot. Got an honor guard from Camp David. My uncle, it was his first day of retirement. He was there in his uniform. Well, you got to understand, my uncle was he was a half-bird, lieutenant colonel, and we had a couple others. My aunt, she was retired Army. One of the guys from the honor guard commented they thought maybe this was some kind of clandestine funeral for a covert military person, because you know, you just didn't see that around there. I'm talking about a little backwood Tennessee town. But yeah, and the biggest thing was that the day of my father's funeral, my Uncle Nick, that was his first day of retirement, and he and my father had a standing date. They were going fishing on Uncle Nick's first day of retirement. Didn't turn out that way. So yeah, when I see what our administration is doing to our veterans, I have a personal and vested interest in what's happening. And for the life of me, I can't understand Veterans for Trump. That you would support someone who's trying to take away what little you've got, trying to privatize something to where you're getting less. Oh, fuck.